Pharmacist Ben.
Well, hello, AJ. Good to see you, buddy.
How are you, sir?
I am good. Just got off a
And
call, ready to do my second one.
you're the busiest man in nutrition.
I want to make it happen. My people
Yeah,
perish for lack of knowledge. Hosea, he said that 900 BC. It's still true today.
we really do appreciate your time that you volunteer for us, and I'm really hoping that folks are tuning in and paying. I know that our normal folks are tuning in and paying attention and getting the message and understanding what's going on. So we just got to get more folks to know what's going on and help themselves.
All right. So who's on today? Who do we have?
Well, so they're coming on in. Of course, Ruth Ellen is on the channels, bringing in questions and making sure that we're compliant with our disclaimer, etc.
Okay.
So we got our team. Becca is driving, so she's not going to make it with us tonight.
All right. Well, I miss Becca, but we're in good hands with AJ.
Yeah, well, we're gonna try. I do have a question. Let's just go right into it.
Yeah.
Um, Teresa is one of our coaches. She's, maybe a 2-star, or maybe a 3-star distributor, and she's got a client who has a glioblastoma tumor,
Okay. That's not
and
good.
it's not good. But we're trying to see if there's something we can do to
You're
make.
not gonna, yeah, that's a very aggressive cancer. It's brain cancer, basically. It's a brain tumor. The thing about cancer is when you have cancer, a switch has been turned on. And while it is possible to turn that switch off and that switch has been turned, remissions occur. I have a whole textbook on spontaneous remissions, and they do occur. And we all get cancer all the time, and our body usually handles it. By the time you have the symptoms of cancer, like a brain cancer, you're down the road. You're already down the road. You're not gonna handle that with nutrition. That's not a nutritional thing. That being said, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're smoking, you're eating lots of lousy food, particularly fried fats, because the brain is very sensitive to fats. You're handling your sugar and that kind of thing. There's lots you can do. And the job of cancer, in the way I look at it, and God forbid, I don't have cancer. Praise God, I don't, and you don't, AJ. And I'm not going to put myself in the position of, telling somebody what to do when they have cancer. But it seems to me like when you have cancer, your goal is to feel good every day, not to worry about the cancer prognosis in the future, but to every day feel better, to get stronger every day. Brain cancer and glioblastoma is really tough because it's such an aggressive, malignant cancer. And it's really hard to feel better, especially, and it's your brain. So it's controlling everything in the body. So it's a really hard, but that's not a nutrition. I wouldn't want to put myself in a position of saying, treat that with the Healthy Start Pack. That's not to say you don't want to do the Healthy Start Pack. That's not to say you don't want to treat yourself like a diabetic. Go on the ketogenic diet. Make sure you're hydrating. If you're smoking or drinking or doing drugs, obviously quit those and live as much of a healthy lifestyle as you can. That's important. But really, with brain cancer, you're not going to treat it with a Healthy Start Pack or Fucoid Z or Restart Your Life. I would never put myself in a position of telling somebody to treat it that way. I would say to do all the things we should all be doing, taking care of your nutrition and exercising and breathing and hydrating and staying away from all the bad stuff. But as far as treating the cancer, that's not a nutritional, in my opinion, that's not a nutritional deal.
And a couple questions though, but the source was the dirty blood, essentially.
Everything is, yes, exactly. Everything relates to the blood. There's no such thing as a chronic long-term illness that does not involve blood toxicity. That's the mechanism, blood toxicity. Unless you got, I don't even know how you could possibly, if something got injected into the tissue and you got an infection, but no, there's no way, because there's no way. Everything's the blood. Everything is the blood, yes.
So are there
how old is this person? Is this an elderly? Usually it happens to people in their 50s or 60s.
Let's see here. I don't have I don't have an age. All I know is that he started taking Healthy Brain and Heart Pack and some ZRadical and muscadine grape.
Yeah, this is somebody who's just basically doesn't know what to do, so they're throwing everything against the wall. You're not going to get rid of glioblastoma with muscadine grape. That's not going to happen. Okay, if it does happen, then that's a miracle that, and you need to be praising God, because that's the only way that's going to happen. So really what we have to be doing is we have to be preventing these things from happening. And that involves the brain. So it's unlikely that somebody has a glioblastoma who's never had any health problems. So what that means is he has other places he can work. I without knowing who he is, I can't really speak to it. But I would guess that this guy is probably dysglycemic, messed up blood sugar, probably has some degree of dysbiosis, some kind of intestinal health issue. Those are places he can work. But again, there's a switch that's turned when you have cancer. So it's not like I'm going to lower my blood sugar and take care of my digestion and my glioblastoma will go away. That's not to say you don't want to do those things, though. Do you get what I'm saying here?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying don't do those things. Those things will definitely give you more energy. Those things will definitely help your body deal with the glioblastoma. But it's not like you're going to get the glioblastoma is going to go away when you lower your blood sugar. But that you still want to lower your blood sugar. The glioblastoma is not necessarily going to go away when you take care of your digestive issues, but you still need to take care of your digestive issues, because all of these strategies are going to help your body deal with the glioblastoma. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not telling you we're curing your cancer by lowering your blood sugar or by taking the Healthy Start Pack. But the Healthy Start Pack, lowering your blood sugar, taking care of dysbiosis, will give your body better resources so it can take care of the glioblastoma. That's a very important distinction. Just because I'm not telling you lowering your blood sugar is going to get rid of your glioblastoma, that doesn't mean you don't want to lower your blood sugar. That doesn't mean you don't want to work on your digestive health. That doesn't mean you don't want to take the Healthy Start Pack. You want to make your body give your body better resources so it can handle the cancer.
Understood very well and clearly. I do have a question, though. You mentioned you had a book that talks about some spontaneous remission.
Yes. Yeah, I have a whole textbook. It's a textbook. It's on spontaneous remissions. I got to go find it. I don't remember the title.
What types of scenarios?
People who just remitted, and the doctors didn't know why they remitted. They just remitted.
No common denominators that you
No common denominator. They remitted. The body took care of the cancer. And we all get cancer all the time. We all get cancer. You have cancer right now, but your body's taking care of it. And that's what happens. Cancer is a normal occurrence. What we call cancer or carcinogenesis, cells that are mutated and that would, if the body didn't handle them, would form tumors. That happens all the time. But the body takes care of it. The body has systems in place. Every once in a while, a cell escapes. And that's when cancer occurs. And the more mutations that happen, the more likely it is the cell's going to escape.
All right. Well, I mean, we tried as much as we can on that topic. We have a question out on YouTube, and this is from Notorious Steph, and maybe her husband has the account today. It says, "My wife, age 43, and myself, age 45, she wants to get off birth control pills and wants me to get a vasectomy." I guess they're asking your opinion about cut.
First of all, I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't like anybody cutting me anyway, but especially down there. But they do vasectomies. They're pretty safe. But I don't know. The birth control pill is one of the nastiest drugs a human being can take. It is not a benign, gentle drug, the birth control pill. It's a big, big dose of estrogen and progesterone, but not estrogen, progesterone. Fake, toxic, pharmaceutical estrogen. Fake, toxic, pharmaceutical progesterone. They are nasty as nasty come. They're just awful drugs. So, that's between you and your wife, obviously, but, I wouldn't want my wife taking the birth control pill. So,
okay, so what's their choice?
There's other mechanisms. There's other ways.
The rhythm method is that?
The rhythm method works. Condoms. There's lots of ways you can do it. Okay. Right? It's not like you have to be on the pill and you have to have a vasectomy. There's lots of ways you can prevent birth. right? You just have it as a
Oh
positive.
man, yeah. Well, I
I don't
mean,
want to get too graphic here, but just there's ways that you could do it. Call me in private, and I'll give you some tricks.
this it's late night with Ben. I mean, you can go in
Yeah,
if you choose.
you just pull out. You know,
This
there's ways that you can do it. It's not like vasectomy is the only thing you can do. I wouldn't want a vasectomy. I
all
wouldn't.
right, sorry to make light of this, folks, but I guess we got the point. Yeah, get off the birth control pills if at all possible, because they don't treat your body well.
No, it's an awful drug. Awful, awful drug.
Yeah, yeah. Pharmacist Ben, there was a gentleman on Facebook, and he talked about eating 720 eggs in the span of a month. What do you think about
That's a little
the fact
obsessive.
that his cholesterol level did not rise?
Well, because cholesterol is controlled by the body. The body controls cholesterol levels. 420 eggs in a month's time.
720,
720 eggs in a month's time. Well, what does that come out to? I mean, that's
about
a
one
dozen.
an hour.
720 divided by 30 is what? It's 20 eggs a day or 24 eggs a day or something.
Something like that, yeah.
2 dozen eggs a day. That sounds kind of disgusting to me, but I mean, if you like it, I suppose you like it. Cholesterol is not an issue with eggs. The cholesterol issue is anybody who understands biochemistry, and I get that most people here aren't necessarily biochemists, and most people in the world aren't biochemists. Does anybody understand biochemistry? It's ludicrous. Just the epitome of biochemical ignorance to think that elevated blood cholesterol is because you're eating a lot of cholesterol. So I'm not surprised that it didn't go up. Cholesterol is controlled by the body. The more you eat, the less you make. So in a way, eating cholesterol is a great way to keep your body from making cholesterol. Your body senses the cholesterol. When our cholesterol levels go up, it's because our body thinks it needs to make cholesterol. So you say, why does the body think it needs to make cholesterol? Because cholesterol is a building molecule. Cholesterol is important for making cells. Cholesterol is important for making hormones. Cholesterol is a critical player in the development in the building of the coating on your nerves.
The myelin.
So the myelin. So the more activity, the more building that the body thinks it has to do, or the more hormones that the body has to make, the more cholesterol it's going to make. What do you think the single most important lifestyle activity that we do every single day that tricks the body into thinking it needs to be building when we're not building? Just tricks the body, hacks into the building system. What do you think it is?
Eating?
Sugar.
Sugar.
And elevated cholesterol goes hand in hand with elevated insulin. They go hand in hand. And elevated insulin comes from elevated sugar. And by the way, nobody checks for insulin. They check for sugar. And if your insulin is high, that's going to completely throw off your biochemistry, but your sugar can be normal. Should I say that again? That's so important. There are people out there who are being told that their sugar is normal, but they're not being told that their sugar is normal because their insulin is high. And you can't really check for insulin because insulin fluctuates. Sugar is easy to check for. You eat sugar, it goes in your blood. But insulin's constantly going up and down, and it's doing so many different things. It's really difficult, and it's in the blood in very tiny quantities. It's very difficult to test for insulin. You can do it, but it's very hard. So nobody ever tests for insulin. They test for sugar. But your sugar is not a good metric of how well your body is handling sugar. So you can have normal blood sugar, but your insulin's high, and elevated cholesterol and elevated insulin go together. So if your insulin's high, consider yourself to be a diabetic, or at the very least hyperinsulinemic, too much insulin.
Which is
what?
You said which is?
Hyperinsulinemic, too much insulin.
So we have Mickey Pastor, who is one of our good friends.
Hi, Mickey.
He's 59, in good shape, had essential tremors since his teens. The doc says it's not Parkinson's, not epilepsy. Lost his police job because he failed,
Okay,
some tests.
essential tremor. You said essential tremor, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, essential tremor. The word essential means it's just part of you. There's no known cause. There's no reason. Obviously, there's a reason, but they're saying essential, like essential hypertension. There's no reason. Essential just means it's part of you. When something's essential, it's part of you. So that basically is a doctor saying we have no idea what the heck's going on. So a couple things. First of all, is he on the call?
He's on YouTube.
The first thing I would ask him is, does he have tremors in the bathtub when he takes a bath? What do you suppose, AJ, if he doesn't have tremors when he takes a bath, what is that telling you?
That his body is being relaxed, and then
Exactly. So that's the first thing I would ask him. If the essential tremors go away in the bath. If your essential tremors go away in the bath, you know that you have a sympathetic nervous system problem, stress or fight or flight nervous system problem. Okay, can you ask him? See if he says that.
well, he's not responded yet, but I know he's watching, so hopefully he will
So
respond.
that's the first thing. The second thing I would start to do is I would do all the things that are important for nerves. B vitamins, key players. That would be the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Synaptive, anything with all the B complex in it, especially thiamine, vitamin B1, which is probably the most important. I don't want to say the most, but it's one of the most important for nerves, B1. Also, the ultimate EFAs are very important for neural health. Number one, because they're important components of the nerve sheath, and number two, they're also anti-inflammatory, particularly omega-3s. Yes, sir.
That was my question. If you can they take like 9, take the
Yeah,
ultimate EFA and the EFA
absolutely.
plus?
And
Okay.
the synaptive. Also, see if he can link his essential tremors to specific foods. If he notices that there are foods that trigger the tremors or make the tremors worse, or if the tremors flare. If his tremors flare, that'll give you real-time information on something that you're doing. This is true about all flare-ups, by the way. Skin flare-ups, tremor flare-ups, vertigo or dizziness flare-ups. Any kind of flare-up gives you real-time information on what you just did that's related to your symptom. So look for flare-ups. Sometimes foods can cause them. Sometimes dysbiosis can cause them. Changes in gut bacteria can cause them. It can also involve neurotransmitters, brain chemicals. Like there are brain chemicals that are excitatory, and there are brain chemicals that are inhibitory. Excitatory brain chemicals is things like glutamine or glutamate, as in MSG, monosodium glutamate. They put these excitotoxins in foods. On the other hand, there are relaxing neurotransmitters like glycine has relaxing effects. Inositol has relaxing effects. Tryptophan has relaxing effects. Magnesium has relaxing effects. GABA has relaxing effects. So using all of these supplements can help relax the body. That's assuming that his tremors are caused by some kind of contractile issue. And that's why I would ask him if he has them in the bathtub. And this is true about Parkinson's patients also. If you have Parkinson's or any kind of tremors, if you have them in the bathtub or you don't have them in the bathtub, that's telling you that when your body's relaxed, the tremors go away. That's telling you that the tremors are related to an activated stress nervous system, sympathetic nervous system. So those are all strategies for doing that. But nutrition, I'd be focusing on B vitamins specifically, as well as the ultimate EFAs. Yeah, were you saying something?
He never gets tremors in the tub.
Well, there you go. You answered your own question. Why would you never get tremors in the tub? Tell him again in case he didn't hear it. Because you're relaxed. So there's your answer. I told you, vote for me for president, and every American gets a hot tub in the backyard.
Hot tub in the backyard for everyone.
Hot tub in the backyard. Vote for me. That's the kind of healthcare we need in this country. Hot tub, a chicken in every pot, and a hot tub in every backyard.
What president said a chicken in every pot?
I think it was Roosevelt or somebody in the Depression. It's a chicken in every pot.
I had a nephew who was having tremors, and it was giving him problems at work. And I gave him. We have a nootropic called the Smart Sticks, which they're discontinuing again.
Okay.
But it happens to have L-theanine,
Theanine's great. Yes, that's good.
inositol,
Inositol. Okay.
and some other things in it. And I gave him some simple nutritional, like multivitamin, and he has not had a tremor since.
There you go. And synaptive too. Don't forget that. I don't know about your cousin, but
I
synaptive.
didn't. Yeah. Okay, David, please clarify your question. Is it common for IV? Not sure. Elise, hi guys. What's your take on Tourette's and schizoaffective disorder?
Well, Abram Hoffer treated schizoaffective disorder with niacin. That's number one. That would be the first thing I think of. Also, vitamin C is another thing I would think of. Ultimate EFAs, synaptive, staying away from problem foods. I had a friend. Not a friend, but an acquaintance who I used to go to. There's a health food store here in Boulder where I used to get a juice every morning, and there would be this guy who had schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. I assume they mean schizophrenia, and he was a really friendly guy, and he was on schizophrenic antipsychotic meds. His name was Greg, and he would be every time I go in and get my juice, Greg would be there drinking a big 64-ounce bottle cup of Coca-Cola. He didn't get it at the health food store. They didn't have it there, but he would go somewhere and hang out at the health food store. And I got to talking to him because it was early in the morning and I'd be the only guy there with him. And I got to talking to him, and he'd be like, he had this really schizophrenic way of talking. Ben, I hate the medication, Ben. They give me the medicine. I hate the medicine. And I said, Greg, look what you're drinking the Coke, and let's do this. We'll go to the salad bar. I went to the salad bar, and I got him grounding foods, high protein foods, beans and eggs, and cruciferous vegetables, things that were solid grounding foods. And I made him a big salad, put a bunch of oil on it, a bunch of salt, a bunch of salt and pepper, and I gave it to him. And I started giving it to him every morning. I'd go in there, I'd buy him. It was like $3 or $4 back then. I gave him a salad, and at the end of a couple of weeks, he was a new human being. He was off his meds.
No way.
He's weaning off his meds. He eventually got off his meds, but he was able to wean off his meds, and he didn't talk like that anymore. And he didn't drink the Coke anymore. And he's like a normal guy. And it showed me how the relationship between the kind of foods he was eating and his meds, and it showed him, and he became like a normal guy. And then I stopped going to it was called alfalfas. I stopped going to alfalfas for a while. And I came back, and there was Greg, and he was off the salad, and he was drinking the Coke. And Ben, I'm sorry. Yeah. But I saw the relationship between the foods we eat and schizophrenia and brain disease. And it turns out that most schizophrenics, or a lot of them, I don't know if most, but a lot of them are eating Snickers bars and French fries and sugary foods and processed foods because it gives them a buzz. It gives them energy. Excitotoxin foods. And because of the way our society is, we don't recognize the relationship between foods and schizoaffective disorders. So there's a very important connection between the foods we eat and schizophrenia and brain health issues. This is especially dramatic in cases of autism. And a lot of, if not most, a lot of autistic kids have gluten intolerance, dysbiosis. They'll get worse when they eat certain foods. And today there are a lot of people, including Dr. Natasha Kinsky-Campbell, who wrote a book called, which I have right here, called The Gut and Psychology Syndrome. Think of autism, which is a type of schizoaffective disorder, as an intestinal issue and as a food issue. So that's another strategy for schizoaffective disorder. Dr. Abram Hoffer, who is known as the father of orthomolecular medicine, used niacin to treat schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorders. The B vitamins in general can help with schizoaffective disorders. Niacin being a very important B vitamin, and no accident, niacin is very important for the processing of sugar. So that's another strategy. And I think I mentioned essential fatty acids. That's another thing that you can use for schizoaffective disorders. The food, Nightly Essence, intestinal health. Niacin, by the way, also is very important for intestinal health. No accident. Vitamin B3 niacin, the ultimate niacin, all the B vitamins, Synaptive, Healthy Start Pack, laying off of sugar. There's lots of things you could do for schizoaffective disorders. I would absolutely not regard it as intractable or irreversible, and I would not say that the only thing they can do is psychiatric meds. I have a lot of understanding about, I have a personal understanding of psychoactive meds because I worked in a psychiatric hospital as a psychiatric pharmacist when I graduated pharmacy school. One of my first jobs was as a psychiatric pharmacist, Mount Airy Psychiatric Institute. And one of my jobs was to go with the doctors, and we would have to go patient by patient, and we'd have to review their meds. And let me tell you something. It's a crapshoot with psychoactive meds. Nobody knows nothing about how they work, how they combine, what dose to use, and the patients are basically guinea pigs because nobody really knows. No doctors, no pharmacists, nobody knows the type of dose you need, how they go together, and they're mixing cocktails, a little of this, a little of that. Sometimes the drugs will cause movement disorders like tics and such, and they have to give you drugs for the tics in order to make sure they give you enough psychoactive drugs. They have to give you other drugs to take care of your movement disorders. Sometimes the movement disorders are permanent. They call them tardive dyskinesias, and sometimes they don't go away. It's just psychiatric meds are a big mess and a crapshoot at that. So personally, I would be using all the nutritional strategies that I just talked about, including dietary modification and working on intestinal health. Tourette's syndrome is very interesting too, because it's not a psychoactive, it's not a schizophrenic disorder or a psychiatric disorder, but it's a movement disorder. And movement disorders are also brain health issues. In fact, Dr. Wallach, you know the story about Dr. Wallach, he discovered nutrition by curing himself of Tourette's syndrome. He had Tourette's syndrome when he was a kid, and he cured himself by using nutrition, basically by using minerals. Actually, you know what he used, interestingly, I don't know if you heard the story, he used rabbit pellets. You ever hear it?
Of course, I know the story.
Yeah, he would eat rabbit pellets for breakfast, and of course his mom was freaked out by it, but you can only imagine what Dr. Wallach must have been like as a kid, in the 40s. Probably telling his mom where to go, I'm eating these rabbit pellets, And anyway, he cured himself using nutrition. So Tourette's syndrome, again, should be thought of as a neural health issue. Focus on digestive health, inflammation, relaxing supplements like we just talked about, magnesium, inositol, GABA, glycine, theanine, anything you do that relaxes the body, and then the mighty 90 essential nutrients, and stay away from anything that hypes the body up, like sugar, or foods that you're intolerant to. Mm-hmm. Correct dysbiosis.
Keep a food diary.
And also, let me just say this about Tourette's and schizoaffective disorders. And I think we may have talked about this before. We have developed a medical model in this country and around the world, historically, where we focus on parts of the body. But the body is not parts. The body is a system. And so when we have a skin problem, we go to a dermatologist, and a bone problem, we go to an osteopath, and an eye problem, we go to an ophthalmologist, and a heart problem, we go to a cardiologist, and a female health problem, we go to an OBGYN, and a hormone problem, you go to an endocrinologist. And we go to these different specialists who work on one part of the body, but that's not how the body works. The body is a system, and you have to work on the entire system, and that's why we focus on the triangle, because the triangle are the main systems in the body: the digestive system, the blood sugar system, the adrenal system or the endocrine system, the hormone system, the steroid hormone system, the thyroid hormone system. We work on systems. So you don't really treat Tourette's. You don't treat schizophrenia. You don't treat cardiac issues unless you're a doctor. And we all know that they're complete failures when it comes to treating these things. And I'm not insulting doctors, because I have a lot of friends who are doctors. They're good people. They can't do it. They cannot treat heart disease or schizophrenia or movement disorders or Tourette's. There's nothing they can do because the problem is systematic. It's not localized. It's not based on individual structures. We can't see the forest for the trees. You know what I'm saying? We're looking at the individual components, but we don't see we have to take a step back and see the entire system. So that's why I make a joke. It's not a joke. It's serious. There's only one disease, MBFA disease, right?
My body's falling apart.
Disease. Tourette's syndrome is MBFA disease. So when you say, what do I do for Tourette syndrome? I'm going to tell you the same thing that you do for diabetes, or that you do for menstrual problems, or that you do for arthritis, or that you do for autoimmune disease, or any other health challenge. Digestion, blood sugar, and work on, if you want to go third point, the adrenal thyroid complex. That being said, there are specific things you could do for neurology, such as we say, relaxing kind of nutrients. But basically, it's going to be digestion, blood sugar, and if you want to go to the third point, the adrenal thyroid link.
We have a good number of questions rolling in, but I want to go to our friend who's driving, Rebecca Dukes,
Rebecca,
who got a
what's up,
little
Rebecca?
bit of a setback because she got stung by a bee, and she got a reaction
Yeah,
for 3 days. A little painful, but what can you do for a honeybee sting?
it's not a honeybee. As you know, it's a honeybee, not a wasp.
Well, Becca knows her animals. She knows her animals. She knows her plants. She knows she. That's what she's sticking to.
Honeybees sting. I didn't know honeybees sting. There's no real specific nutrition for a bee sting, but you can like soak the area with bentonite clay. You can use antihistamines. Vitamin C is a natural antihistamine. Quercetin's, excuse me, quercetin's a natural antihistamine. But really, you just got, unless is she allergic? Is it kind of allergic?
Yeah, she had a reaction. Yeah.
Excuse me. Vitamin C then for that kind of, for an allergic reaction, that's the most important thing. But really, it has to work itself out. They can be deadly. I mean, they're not anything to kick to fool around with. There's not real nutrition for bee venom though.
Mm-hmm.
Although bee venom is actually, it itself has anti-inflammatory properties. Did you know that? They use it for various antifungal properties. It has anti-arthritis properties, that kind of thing. Did you know that bee venom is actually medicine? Snake venom too.
Do you think? Do you think the plant-derived minerals would do some job in extracting?
They won't hurt her. But again, it gets the idea of you're not treating specific issues. You want to treat the whole body and let the body deal. Venom has to work itself through.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, back
the allergic mediator is usually the allergic mediator is histamine. That's the chemical that causes the problems when you have an allergic reaction. And so things you can do natural antihistamines. Vitamin C being one, endocannabinoids being another. Melatonin is a natural antihistamine. Vitamin C, as I said, is an antihistamine. You can use drug antihistamines. Benadryl is the most common one. But really, it's not, you got to let that thing work out. It's not really a nutritional thing.
Blake takes care of his elderly mother. She has constant UTIs. She's super clean, getting to 90. D-mannose. I'm not sure what that is.
D-mannose is they use that to slime away the bacteria that causes UTIs. However, if she gets chronic UTIs, they call that interstitial cystitis. That needs to be treated, no surprise, as an intestinal problem. Dysbiosis is the major cause of interstitial cystitis. Also, connective tissue deterioration is involved in interstitial cystitis. I'm assuming that's what he means when he says chronic UTIs. Now, there's no doctor on the planet that's going to treat a chronic UTI like a connective tissue issue or like dysbiosis. But those are the main places that you want to work. So he said, I don't mean to insult him, but I'm going to say something that may sound insulting. I don't mean to insult anybody. But this is important. When I hear that, because I hear this a lot. Oh, I eat really clean and I'm really healthy, but I have arthritis and I have heart disease, but I eat really healthy. It doesn't work that way. Something's getting into your system. And I'm not saying this to make you wrong or to embarrass you or shame you or anything like that. I'm just saying you want to find places where you can work. If you say, I eat great, I'm healthy as a horse, I just have heart disease. All right, well, what am I going to do then? There's no place to work. You got to find places. You got to look for places. As a first principle, where you see the problem is not where the problem begins. This is a first rule of, they call it a first principle, but a first rule in healing a chronic condition. Where you see the chronic condition is not where the chronic condition begins, with the exception of intestinal or digestive problems, because that's where they occur. With that exception, other than digestive problems, where you see the challenge, the health issue, is not where it begins. You have to go upstream. In the case of interstitial cystitis, you're dealing with chronic bacterial infections. Where do most of the bacteria in the body live? In the intestine. So right away, if you have a chronic intestinal bacterial problem, UTIs, interstitial cystitis, you almost by definition have some kind of dysbiosis going on. And it turns out that they go together. Also, interstitial cystitis is connected to connective tissue inflammation and deterioration, and that is also a part of the basic ways the body breaks down: digestion, blood sugar, my body's falling apart disease. So building connective tissue, using connective tissue building strategies, as well as digestive and blood sugar issues. Always backtrack to the first 2 points on the triangle of disease. So when you say, you're clean, if you were, you wouldn't have interstitial cystitis. I'm not saying that to embarrass or, pick on anybody, but that's how you want to look at it.
Blake, to get more clarity on what Ben is mentioning, take a look at triangleofdisease.com.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about it. How's that going, that website?
It's still in the same state, but it's got tons of information. At some point, we will update it a little more and get it all the bells and whistles going, but it's still a great resource for people to look at. And I did do the change that you mentioned, putting
which one, the 2 points?
Yeah. Well, it's always going to be the triangle. If we do the plain of disease website, then we'll have 2 points. But
I know we got to come up with it. We got to come up with another. We got to come up with another day.
But triangle is there, and it's going to be helpful. And
so interstitial cystitis, just the two major focal points have to be the intestine and building the connective tissue. There's connective tissue deterioration. It may be that the connective tissue deterioration is following the bacterial infiltration, and that can happen. But there is connective tissue deterioration associated with IC, interstitial cystitis, as well as dysbiosis.
Okay, you know what? You brought something up a little earlier. I forgot to ask a question about why is niacin particularly helpful for gut health?
Niacin is a lot of reasons, but most importantly, niacin is anti-inflammatory. And niacin deficiency is associated with diarrhea and digestive health problems, intestinal health problems.
Okay, Sylvia has a lot of family and friends that have been having kidney issues, and she's mentioning she knows some things about like taking omega-3s and acetylcysteine, astragalus root, cordyceps mushroom, dandelion root, coenzyme Q10, and turmeric. It seems like she's for her friends' kidney issues, friends and family with kidney issues, and she's looking for ways to help them reverse it.
Kidney disease should be regarded as a blood sugar condition. I'm not sure what kind of kidney issues are they having.
She hasn't mentioned, but she did say reverse the issues with bad kidneys.
Sugar, always. The kidneys are basically are composed of very, 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 very tiny blood vessels, microscopically thin blood vessels. Like, look at one of your hairs, okay, and then imagine that a capillary is even thinner than a hair, maybe tens or hundreds of times thinner than a hair. Can you imagine, like, an invisible vessel? That's how tiny it is, right? I mean, it's even hard to comprehend. That's what the kidneys are made of. These tiny little microscopically thin blood vessels are wrapped around into like a ball of yarn. They're just wrapped and wrapped and wrapped, and that's how the blood gets filtered. It's through these tiny capillaries. These tiny capillaries are very sensitive to what's in the blood. So when stuff is in the blood, it can damage the blood vessels. The most common toxin, if you will, that's in the blood that causes damage to the blood vessels is sugar. So kidney disease and glycation, or blood vessel capillary damage, go hand in hand. And you can reverse kidney disease. Becca is famous for that. You can reverse kidney disease. Treat it like a diabetic. Use the Healthy Start Pack. Use all of the minerals. Healthy Blood Sugar Pack, I should say. Use all of the minerals and treat the patient like a diabetic.
And take a look at the triangleofdisease.com, triangleofdisease.com website for more assistance. God's Divine Mercy. Hello, I've had very high blood count for many years.
What's high blood count?
Uh, Very high red blood count, 5.41,
Yes.
and then 47.1 for the hematocrit.
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 Yes. So that tells when your hematocrit's high, you have lots of red blood cells. That is telling us that the body's not getting oxygen. Red blood cells carry oxygen, and when parts of the body aren't getting oxygen, one of the ways that the body will compensate is by making more blood cells, and that can get pretty serious. There are actually diseases where the blood becomes extremely thick because of this, because of the elevated high hematocrit, elevated blood cells. So you want to treat that as a inflammatory issue. There's some inflammation somewhere that's keeping oxygen from that's keeping the blood from delivering oxygen. So the blood is now the body's making more blood cells in an attempt to get more oxygen, but that itself is a problem. So what I would ask this patient, keeping in mind that where you see the problem is not where the problem begins, is what else is going on? What else is going on that's leading to this kind of hypoxic or low blood oxygen condition? Now, it could be COPD, it could be lung issues, it could be heart failure, it could be kidney disease, it could be dirty blood, it could be a whole bunch of things. But you can't address it by just having that one symptom. Remember Bob Ross and his paintings? You got to triangulate. You need multiple symptoms. Is this guy on a call?
They are on YouTube, but it has not followed up with any further.
The only way to address this is to see what else is going on. I can't really address it effectively, except to say that thinning the blood is probably the best thing that you want to do, so that you, or if there's any inflammation anywhere, dealing with, but you have to find other symptoms. You can't really work on that by itself. So, I could tell you thinning the blood, more water, essential fatty acids, glucogel caps, vitamin E, omega-3 fatty acids. Those are all blood thinning strategies, because the big problem with an elevated hematocrit or high red blood cell count is the blood becomes sticky. The blood becomes sludgy. The blood doesn't move around as effectively, and that leads to a whole host of other health problems. But I would want to know what else is going on that's causing the inflammation that's leading to the elevated red blood cell count. That would be most important. I'd have to ask him other questions.
Okay, God's Divine Mercy, follow up with us. Let us know if you have any other insights that we can help triangulate your real problem. And if you don't get to us right now, email us at questions@dailywithdoc.com. Hophead on Rumble says, can minor blockages in the heart be reversed through nutrition? I've changed my diet drastically, cut back on bread and sweets over 95%, and added more exercise.
Awesome. That's awesome. Used ultimate enzymes on an empty stomach. There's an enzyme called nattokinase that you'll find in the Nightly Essence. In fact, the Nightly Essence itself, just the bacteria, the probiotics can help. Glucogel can also help. Anything that you can use that'll keep the blood circulating more effectively is going to help. Chelation therapy. You can either have a chiropractor or alternative practitioner, or even a doctor, do chelation therapy. That's a great strategy. Also, there are nutrients that have chelating properties. Ultimate MSM has chelating properties. Fucoidin, the Fucoid Z, has chelating properties, also blood thinning properties as well. And by the way, Fucoid Z, obviously everybody knows about fucoidin, but there's also something in Fucoid Z called sulfate. In fact, fucoidin sulfate. And sulfate is incredibly valuable for the circulatory system as well as for the detoxification system, especially for women. So anything that has sulfate in it or sulfur, you can use Ultimate MSM to get sulfur. In order to convert sulfur to sulfate, you need magnesium. So magnesium maybe. Also molybdenum, which is another mineral that you don't hear a lot about. That's involved in the production of sulfate. But then the fucoidin itself, or glucosamine sulfate, or Ultimate MSM, as I said. And then let's see what else here. There's one other thing I was going to tell you. as far as the N-acetylcysteine has chelating properties. Ultimate selenium has chelating properties. Vitamin C has chelating properties. So anything that can chelate can help clean clogs out of the blood. So if your blood is clogged, or your blood vessels are clogged, I should say, yes, there are things that you could do to declog. How fast you need to declog, I can't say. So if you have like 80% clogging, if your blood vessels are blocked like 80%, you might not want to wait to break that down. You might want to do something about it because that could be serious. On the other hand, if it's just starting to be, if the clogging is just starting, all the chelating strategies and the blood cleaning strategies like the ultimate enzymes and nattokinase can help.
The word he uses, minor blockages. Is there such thing?
Yeah. It could be a minor block. They're by degree. It could be up to 90% blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And all that is just reasons why you want to take care of yourself when you're young. There's absolutely no benefit to French fries at all. And you might like them and they're delicious and all of that, but there's a price to be paid. Same as sugar.
Pharmacist Ben, you talked about Fucoid Z, and particularly for women, the fucoidin sulfate. It's interesting. I just have a quick story because we do have more comments and questions. There was a woman that I knew about a year ago or so who she was saying that she was having the worst pain during her menstruation.
It's
And
not uncommon.
I mixed up some Tangy and some Fucoid Z and gave it to her.
Yeah.
And she came to me the next day and she said, "What did you give me?
Yeah.
What did you give me?"
That's awesome.
She went crazy and she said, "I had the
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, AJ. And that's why longevity's been around for 27 or 28 years and going strong, while other MLM companies and network marketing companies are going down the toilet. Because we're giving people the basics that everybody needs. And the beautiful thing is that when we're deficient in something and we're symptomatic because of deficiencies, and then somebody like AJ kindly comes along and gives them some BTT, which is basically your Mighty 90 essential nutrients, or at least most of them, and Fucoid Z, which has sulfate in it, very important for female health issues, very important for blood, for estrogen detoxification, and for fluidizing the blood. You change her life. That's why we're here. Thank you, AJ. That's a great story. That's exactly why we're here. You didn't do something like a doctor say, "Oh, we're going to treat your menstrual problems." You gave her the basics. Her body, God treated her menstrual problems, her pain. You gave her the basics, so God and the body and the divine force can do the work.
Absolutely. Back to God's divine mercy.
Yes.
Mention. This is where we're talking about the elevated blood. Elevated blood.
The hematocrit guy, the red blood cells.
It's been high for many years. I do have a high blood sugar issue at 5.7.
Well, look, I'm not psychic Ben. I'm pharmacist Ben. I'm just telling you how the body works. Obviously, there's something going on. There's some kind of inflammatory issue because the body's attempting to get oxygen. That's what the red blood cells are doing. It's making red blood cells so it can deliver oxygen, right? So tissues are not getting oxygenated. If you have high blood sugar, that's going to impair oxygenation. So the body's going to be like, okay, we got to get some more blood cells so we can get some more oxygen. So the problem isn't the red blood cells. That's actually the body's solution. That's not the problem. That's the solution. The problem is, why does the body need to make red blood cells? And God's divine mercy is saying he has high blood sugar, but he probably has other things too. You don't just have high blood sugar. It's not like these things happen on their own. There's probably other reasons why you have inflammatory issues. So look for the inflammation. And let me say this real quick. When I say inflammation, it's very easy to say, well, I don't have any inflammation, because we think of inflammation like a black eye. Remember, there's two kinds of inflammation. You've got macro inflammation. That is inflammation that is obvious. You get a black eye or a broken leg or, a knot on your head. That's macro inflammation. But there's micro inflammation that you don't see. It's microscopic. So you may think that everything's fine, but there's microinflammation. How do I know there's microinflammation? Because the body is having a problem getting oxygen to the tissues. That's why it's making more red blood cells. But the problem is the red blood cells are now making the problem worse because the red blood cells are clogging the blood. So now you have more hypoxia, more oxygen deficiencies to tissues. So obviously the body's going to make more red blood cells and you run into a problem. So the real issue is deal with the microinflammation that's causing the problem in the first place. The main causes of microinflammation are the digestive system and the blood sugar system. Those are the main causes. So that's where I would be working.
Guys, Divine Mercy, take a look at triangleofdisease.com. When you talked about the UTIs, Blake says, thank you. Connective tissue and dysbiosis makes sense with her history. And true, no fancy doctor has ever mentioned what you did for UTIs.
Who say that again now?
This was Blake when you talked about his mom's UTI, and you identified that it's connective tissue and dysbiosis. So
no fancy doctor. Well, yeah, that's because the doctors are not seeing the system. They're focusing on the bladder, or they're focusing on the red blood cells, or they're focusing on the neurology. If you have Tourette syndrome, they're not looking at the entire system. And that's the flaw with medicine. That's the problem with medicine. That's why medicine doesn't work when it comes to chronic degenerative diseases. It doesn't work. Well, I mean, how obvious does it have to be for us to see that it just doesn't work? Medicine is for stitching you up when you get hit by a car or a rock falls on your head or you get a burn, God forbid, or some trauma. It's not for these chronic conditions. They don't have the tools for it. I don't care how good your carpenter is. He can make you the best darn furniture and the best cabinets ever. But if you ask him to fix your transmission, he's going to take his saw and his hammer and his nail, and he's going to destroy your engine. And you're going to say, what kind of dummy mechanic are you? And you say, I'm not a mechanic. I'm a carpenter. What'd you ask me to fix your engine for? What'd you ask me to fix your transmission for? I do furniture. But the doctors, you're asking them to fix your car. So of course he's going to do what he can do. It's up to us. I'm here to help you. AJ's here to help you. Longevity's here to help you. But it's up to all of us. We can do this. It's not complicated. That's my message to the world. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. That's why I made it into the triangle, and that's why we even simplified it into a plane. And we further simplified it. Pretty soon it'll be a dot.
The dot of disease. Okay, you lost a friend tonight.
Okay.
Because Laura says, "Oh no, French fries." Yeah,
oh, no. French fries are one of the most god awful foods a human being can ingest, especially for the intestine. They're highly inflammatory for the barrier, and they can be a classic cause. I'm not picking on French fries. Fried fats in general. Doc is famous for telling people not to eat fried fats. He's been saying it since I've known him, which is like almost 30 years. He's been saying it. But anybody who understands anything about biochemistry can tell you that fried fats are going to be a problem. And it's no accident that chronic disease in this country went through the roof as soon as we started to figure out how to create fats that could be fried and then solidified and fried again. That's how most of these fried fats are made. They take oil and they heat it to a high temperature, super high temperature. And then they let it set. It gets solid again, and they reheat it, and they get solid again. They reheat it, and there's some places that haven't changed their French fry grease for decades. Literally. Have you ever seen French fry grease? Have you ever worked in a restaurant?
No, but I've seen it.
Oh my God! Yes, there's a place in Memphis that's really proud that it has not changed its grease for since the 1920s or 1930s.
Oh no!
For the flavor.
I do not believe you.
I saw it on the Food Channel.
That is the worst. Our good friend Coach Rod is in the house.
Coach Rod, love Coach Rod.
Doing good work.
That guy walks the talk. Have you seen him, man? The Broncos need that guy. That guy could play running back today.
Yeah, he could. He's.
I think I'm gonna. Hey, Coach Rod, I'm gonna see you at Fred's in a couple weeks or next month sometime.
So, and I hope he's doing okay because he's in Texas. because they had a lot of flooding down there, so we're hoping everybody's doing well down there. Couple of quick things. There's a woman on Facebook that says that she only eats fruits for her water, does not drink water anymore,
Yeah.
only uses fruit.
I don't know if you can get enough water, but that's the best water. Fruit water is the best water. The problem is fruits are bred today to be very high in sugar. So the fruits we eat today aren't the fruits we ate 100 years ago, or when our bodies were growing up on the African savannah. We didn't have watermelons and honeydews and big old peaches and apples and bananas. And the fruit today is super, super sweet. So that's kind of a problem. That being said, the water in fruits and vegetables is structured water. It's a different kind of water. It's a water that has an organization and a coherency that makes it a much more hydrating water than ordinary water. And that being said, that's also why you want to use blend your Beyond Tangy Tangerine or use your Beyond Tangy Tangerine in a blender. When you blend Beyond Tangy Tangerine in a vortex, like a blender, like it spins around a vortex, you're structuring the water. The water molecules interact with the plant-derived minerals and the ionic minerals to create a structured, coherent water that's similar to the water in fruits. And it's a much more hydrating, electrically active, much more nutritionally valuable water in fruits, in vegetables, and also when you blend your BTT, when you spin your BTT in a blender.
Okay, rapid fire, because I know you got to go. You've been at it all day.
I do have to go. I have a quick video I got to do. So
niacin or niacinamide when you mention for the gut?
Either way. And niacin, you asked me about niacin for the gut. Niacin does a lot of things. But really, the key thing that niacin does, and interestingly, I was just talking about niacin on my last call. Niacin is the one nutrient, the one essential nutrient that the body will make. The body doesn't make vitamins and minerals and aminos, right? They're essential. But the one it will make is niacin because it's so darn important. The reason it's so important is because niacin is part of, it plays an integral role in how food gets turned into energy. More specifically, how glucose and lipids, fats, go into the mitochondria to get turned into energy. And I don't want to get into too much chemistry, but basically speaking, how we get energy is the sugar and the fat gets turned into energy in the mitochondria, and niacin is one of the derivatives. It's called NAD. You may have heard of it, NADH, NADP. That is a derivative of niacin. That's involved in how electricity is produced and ultimately how energy is produced in cells. So the intestine is working very hard. And so that makes it very dependent on niacin. Likewise, the skin, likewise, the brain, and likewise, the heart and the blood vessels. So we find niacin is very important for the circulatory system, for the brain, neurology, for the digestive system, for the skin, because these parts of the body are working very fast and very hard, and they're very dependent on niacin. So niacin is specifically important for the intestine. The distinction between niacin and niacinamide involves the circulatory system, and niacin, which is the flush kind, that's the kind that makes you flush, is better in the sense that it's more important for the blood vessels and for cholesterol and for blood fats. So if you have to do one or the other, do niacin. But as far as intestinal health goes, it doesn't matter which one you do. They'll both get turned into NAD and NADH and be involved in this thing they call electron transport.
What can Kevin do about tinnitus?
You know what? Tinnitus is a classic example of where you see the disease is not where the disease begins. So if you have tinnitus, you have a blood sugar issue and a digestive issue. Tinnitus is like a rotten apple on a tree. If you got a rotten apple on a tree, you ain't fixing that rotten apple. That's rotten. You got to go to the soil and you got to go to the root. If you go to a doctor, you're going to go to an ear doctor or a neurologist, and they're going to try and work on your ears or your neurology. And guess what? They can't do it because the problem is not where you see the problem. That's a first principle. The problem is not where you see the problem. That's just where you see the problem. The The problem is upstream in the triangle.
Okay, Laura, please email us at questions@dailywithdoc.com. I don't think Ben will do it any justice to start talking about Hashimoto and lipoprotein, even though we know that's a triangle of disease.
Triangle is. We can do it next week. We'll be here next week.
And then just real quick, Ben, I need your commentary. There is a really rich guy who's one of the top billionaires in the world who used to invest in pharmaceutical companies, and he's got like this big foundation. He just divested all of his money from the pharmaceutical companies and invested in a new one that deals with viruses through the nasal. He's now investing in some sort of nasal spray or
killing viruses, or it actually contains viruses.
Preventing you from getting it.
Oh, like an antiviral, like a intranasal antiviral.
Intranasal something, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I'd like to read up on him.
You know who I'm talking about? His last name is Gates.
Oh, really? I don't know if I do anything. That guy gives me the creeps, man.
Dr. Evil? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I don't know about that guy.
Don't cut off my computer, Bill.
Yeah, I don't know about that guy. All right, I got to go.
And thanks for all your time. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next time.